Spent hours on that witness stand. Why? I guess attempt to discredit her in some way? You decide whether she was telling the truth. Do you disregard what she said because her family's from Haiti? Because she isn't sophisticated? And because she can't read cursive, unfortunately? I had a dream that today a witness would be judged not on the color of her personality, but of the content of her testimony.
That was a prosecution in closing arguments trying to rehabilitate their so-called star witness, Rachel Gentile. And still with us tonight, we have defense attorney Jose Baez, former LAPD detective Mark Furman, prosecutor Anastasia Nicolazzi, and Judge Alex. Jose, was he successful in doing that?
I don't think she was all that discredited to begin with. The cross was soft on her. There were times where it wasn't effective. But I think the jurors are going to take her testimony for what it's worth. I do believe, yeah, that they were insecure about her because he spent a significant amount of time trying to rehabilitate her in his closing. They're concerned about it, but I'm not so sure that the jury is.
What do you think, Mark Furman?
Well, I think that her opportunity to talk to the detectives, to talk to the prosecutors, to be deposed, and then she comes up at the trial with a statement that the last thing she heard was "get off, get off." I think you would be inclined to disregard her entire testimony, but if you just disregard that portion, she gave the defense the actual start of their case midstream in the prosecution when she described the conversation and the aggressive nature of which Trayvon Martin confronted George Zimmerman.
Yeah. All right, Judge Alex, let me go to the question of some irregularities in this case. You have the former police chief talking about the pressure that was brought to bear on him in this case. The president, my son would look like Trayvon. Now we learned this week that the Department of Justice was helping to organize some of these rallies at the time. You picked up on a couple of other irregularities. Explain.
Well, I mean, first of all, in any homicide investigation, you do not do what you did in this case. In this case, they went and they picked up Rachel Gentile, who was an eyewitness, basically an ear witness, who was on the phone at the time of the confrontation, critical witness in the case. They swoop down, pick her up along with Trayvon's mother and Trayvon's mother's lawyer, go to Trayvon's mother's house, sit her down next to Ms. Fulton, and interview her. You don't interview a key witness in a homicide case.
It's outrageous.
And then they go...
Is that reason for appeal?
Well, no, it's not reason for appeal. It's a reason for the jury to say, wait a minute, what's the motivation behind this prosecution here? Why would you do that? You would, in no homicide case would you ever jeopardize your case to appease anybody. And then they played that tape, that critical tape for the entire family, the mother, the father, the brother, and other relatives, all in the same room at one time, so that when one of them says, that's Trayvon, it poisons all the other. They didn't do the family a favor because they basically tainted their testimony, and that could hurt the case. And that's just one of many things in the case that have happened that make you go, this is not right.
You agree with that? I'm seeing you shaking your head.
I do agree with this. You know, I still think the evidence is there. However, they hurt the case. They didn't help the case. You know, it even goes farther than that. You know, how did they not pick up Trayvon Martin's cell phone the night that he died and go to the person who was on the phone with him minutes before right away? That wasn't done. So when you talk about why this prosecution came forward, again, I don't necessarily agree with that. I do think there was an incredible amount of social pressure, political pressure all the way around, but I think a lot of it was incomplete police work and investigation initially, so that it should be before a jury to make that decision now.
Mark Furman, you were very critical.
Answer to that.
Okay, Jose, you have an answer? Go ahead.
Yes, I do. The phone, Trayvon Martin's phone died, and law enforcement did not have the code to access it. And they were attempting to obtain that from the family, which at that point refused to cooperate with law enforcement. So it was Trayvon Martin's family that actually found this witness and did not advise law enforcement or the prosecution that they had this star witness before they went out and interviewed him. So that's really how all the confusion began. This was not an issue having to deal with law enforcement. It was an issue dealing with the Martin family and Mr. Crump.
Mark, I want you to weigh in, and you were very clear about this from the beginning. The political and social pressure forced this case into the courtroom.
It was horrendous, and this is let's not forget the elephant in the living room. This is a case about race. All the pressure was about race. What's going on in the courtroom is about race. But I want to make a point, 2 points really. Mr. Baez just brought up something. The reason that the police couldn't get that number. The first thing you do is get a search warrant on the cell phone of the victim. You get a search warrant on the residence of the victim, so you can search that for potential evidence of who the perpetrator might have had a connection with him in some way. So that is an excuse. And Anna Siga said something. Well, you actually gave her a compliment about she's never lost a homicide case. Well, I will tell you that that's because she filed good cases that had enough evidence to go to trial. And I would ask her this: would she want to try this case? Would she file this case and try it if she had a choice?
Anna?
Well, I right now wouldn't mind being in that courtroom on this case, because now what I have seen, I do think there is a case to bring to the jury. Look, have there been a lot of bumps in the road, or would I have been happy with all that I had and the problems? No, because of course we always want the best case. But that does, part of our job as prosecutors is to present it and to get to the truth, right? That's what this all should be. And we believe in someone's guilt, which again, I've seen it from the outside looking in, but I've been watching it closely, and I do think that he is guilty based on the evidence. I don't see it for the murder. I do see it for the lesser charge, and I think it is a case that belongs for a jury to decide.
Right.
I don't necessarily think they overcharge. I think they mean they're going to prove it here.
All right, I got one last question for everybody, and Jose, I'll start with you. What should the verdict be? What will the verdict be?
As to what it should be, I wasn't in that courtroom every day, but I do think, based on what I've seen, that they're going to come back possibly. I think there's a good shot that they'll come back with manslaughter.
Because they have the option. What should the verdict be?
What should the verdict be? I think that I think that you have a case that's filled with reasonable doubt, and the evidence is just not there. So it should be not guilty.
Mark, what will it be? What should it be?
I think it should be not guilty because of the same reason Mr. Baez just offered, and I think it's going to be a hung jury, and I think 1 or 2 jurors is going to hold it up, regardless of which way it goes.
Judge Alex?
I don't think it'll be a hung jury well, I mean, anything's possible, but when you sequester jurors, especially a group of women like that, they're going to bond. They're going to talk about things that they can talk about, which is family and stuff, and that makes it easier for them to reach a verdict.
Will it be? What should it be?
I think it should be an acquittal because I don't think they have the evidence necessary to rebut self-defense. It's possible it'll be a manslaughter because jurors, on a case like this that's so tragic, they don't want to say not guilty and they might compromise.
Ms. Prosecutor?
As a prosecutor, I'm superstitious, so I'm not going to predict the verdict. I think that's bad luck all around. However, I see the evidence as beyond a reasonable doubt as manslaughter.
I think it should be an acquittal, but with a jury, unfortunately, you never know. You really don't. That's the scary part for people that deserve an acquittal. Guys, thank you all for being with us. Good panel tonight. Thank you very much.